At 69 years old, Michael Koppe obliterated a 310-mile trail record. A bunch of uber-fast marathoners shattered treadmill world records, and Obsie Birru shows how all can speak the language of running. Brace yourself for a heavy dose of inspiration.
Information about the world of running, inspiration to fuel passion and excellence, and ideas for making connections and finding community. You're listening to AtoZrunning. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the AtoZrunning podcast. I'm Andy.
With Zach here.
And we have a great interview today with Obsie Birru.
Very good conversation. And as we would like to say every time we do an interview, that it was a good conversation. But this is all about getting some encouragement, inspiration, and joy in your ears from another runner. It's great stuff. And it's especially needed for us personally right now, at least in our running, because both Andy and I are struggling with some potential injury type stuff. At the very least, we're in pain, and running is not happening ideally at the moment. And this was quite sudden for both of us. So not the greatest week in running history here.
But we are feeling very inspired, and it's a lot more than the numbers on the page. I think you all know that. That's why you listen to this podcast. Running is part of your life. So we're sure that you've had ups and downs too, but Obsie just has so many really great things to say about community and running being a language. So you'll have to listen for that inspiring quote. We're also going to put that in our link, AtoZrunning.com/episode 36.
But before we share that interview, let's jump over to just a couple of things briefly that we want to update you about the world of running. First up is actually an update, a follow-up from a comment we made in the previous episode. So we mentioned that Michael Koppe or Koppe or whatever, however you say his name, we're not sure. We mentioned that he, at 69 years of age, was going to attempt the fastest known time for the Superior hiking trail, which is, on the northern coast of Lake Superior. It's 310 miles, and at 69 years old, he was going to try to beat the record, which is really something. Well, while we were talking about it, he was undergoing the attempt. And first, I got to set this up better than this. So the previous record was 6 days and change, some odd hours. He said he was going to try to do it in 4 days. He didn't get his goal, but he still beat the previous by a full day.
Wow.
He ran it in 5 days and like 3 hours, I think is what it amounted to.
That's incredible. And how far is that trail?
That's 310 miles. Okay. So, of course, he's not running 100% of the time. Yeah. But to accomplish 310 miles in 5 days, do your math there for a second. He's running 60 miles a day.
That's
plus.
Amazing.
So all of you who have done a 100K, think about doing a 100K for 5 days straight.
Wow.
And then you can tell us what that would actually feel like, because neither of us have a clue and don't really want to try to find out right now.
So he's got that record pretty solidly. I'm thinking
solid.
For a while.
Yeah, but of course, there's going to be some young upstart who's going to say, 69-year-old beat that record? I could beat him. And then go bury himself on the shores of Lake Superior somewhere, as I'm sure others have in the past. So that's really quite incredible. He was trying to raise money for the trails fund, because, as you might guess, those are the kinds of things that have really been struggling during this quarantine type of experience. It really hits them hard because they don't really run a deep pocket for upkeep on the trail. And so he raised $7,500, which then he said he would match as well. So $15,000 to the trail. That's incredible.
Wow.
Next thing is a virtual race challenge put on by, I believe it was Tyler Andrews who actually was organizing this. He's like a 2:15 marathoner who's really been successful in the sport, and he wanted to try to do something different during this time that could still be exciting. And so he put together the Chasky Challenge. It's a treadmill records challenge. And so he got some headliners. I was really quite impressed when I saw who was willing to do this. Sarah Hall was in it. She's doing a half marathon. John Ranieri, who's like a He's like a 61 and change half marathoner. He was also doing the half marathon. And then Renee, and I don't know how to say her last name, Metivier, something like that. And she's a 220-something marathoner, 220-something high marathoner.
Legit.
She was doing the 50K, which is, 31 miles roughly. And then Tyler Andrews himself was also doing the 50K, and he's done that before too. Max King joined him in the 50K. A couple of others doing some things. I know Mario Mendoza was the previous 50K treadmill world record holder, and he was doing the 100K.
Oh, ouch.
All right, so I set it up for you. Now, here's how it fell down. So Mario Mendoza, I'll start with him. He was the only one attempting the 100K. And so a 100K being 62 miles, or we just mentioned the 100K people a little bit ago. So he did it on a treadmill. I just can't imagine that. First of all, I don't think our treadmill would survive. So I wonder if he had two treadmills and was switching back and forth, because I'm not sure. You might burn a treadmill out trying to run for 6 hours plus. Well, he ran a 100K in 6:25 pace, which is like 6 hours and change.
Wow.
He beat the previous record by 70 seconds. So that's cutting it close for a treadmill 100K to, 70 seconds. And if you look at his splits, because we're going to post the link to the website and you can actually see the breakdown of each mile. If you look at his splits, he negative split it. And so he wasn't actually on pace to break the record initially, and had to just kind of slowly ratchet his way up in near the later stages of the run.
That sounds painful.
I don't even understand what that would be like. Okay. So, the 100K, there you have it. He got the new record, 70 seconds. The 50K, now, for the men, Tyler Andrews came through in his own event, and he ran a new 50K treadmill record, beating Mario Mendoza's previous record by 13 minutes, which is solid. So, he finished in a time of 2:42:51 for 50K, which means he came through the marathon at 2:17:56.
Oh, he would have qualified for the trials at that time.
Yeah, that's a full 30 seconds faster than my marathon PR. And by the way, that also gave him the treadmill marathon world record as well. It's a 3-minute improvement of the previous treadmill world record. Max King, by the way, who is second in this challenge, he also broke the previous records for the 50K and marathon. He went 2:45 for 50K, and he came through the marathon in 2:20. He was like 10 seconds under the previous marathon record. So he did it. He pulled it off, but Tyler Andrews did it just a little bit better. So then on the women's side, Renee Metivier ran 3:11:38 for a 50K, which was 40 minutes better than the previous 50K treadmill record. 40 minutes.
What?
40. That's over a minute per mile faster. And then she came through the marathon in 2:41:11.
Okay, so that would be faster than my marathon time.
Yeah.
And I was at the Olympic trials, so it's not a terrible time. But after looking at this, I'm like, whoa.
That's something. That is something. Now, you can see, if you look at the breakdown, you can see why she was going so much faster than the previous 50K record, because she was also trying to get the marathon world record on the treadmill, which she did get by only 1 minute. So she was actually cutting it close for that.
Right.
Which is why she was going as fast as she was for the 50K. So, and then the half marathon. So now here are your big-time headliners, Sarah Hall, John Ranieri. So for the men, John Ranieri ran on a treadmill, half marathon, 1:03:08.
Snap.
63:08, which is only like a minute and a half slower than his PR half marathon.
He's in good shape.
Yeah. That's, by the way, 30 seconds faster than the previous world record. So the previous world record was 1:03:37, I think.
Okay.
And he ran 1:03:08. That's not shabby.
No.
These are serious records here.
These are really great records.
Well, then that brings us to Sarah Hall. Now, Sarah Hall has run 1:08 and change in the half marathon, right? I think I've got that right. We don't have her PR in front of us, but it's 1:08 something-ish. Well, on the treadmill, she went 1:09:07.
So fast.
On a treadmill for a half marathon, which, by the way, beats the previous world record by 11 minutes.
11 minutes and a half.
Almost a minute per mile faster than the previous record. Because why? Because she's Sarah Hall, and she could, because she was in good shape And
Okay.
why wouldn't you?
So her best half marathon performance is 1:08:58.
Oh, I knew it was 108 and change, but I didn't realize it was that close.
It's so close.
So whether that's perfectly accurate or it's somewhere near
it's only
that,
9
'cause,
seconds
you know, who knows?
different
Yeah,
than her
so
PR.
Sarah Hall, would you say you're in decent shape right now? Just out of curiosity. All right. That's it for you. The Chasky Challenge. What an incredible thing to do. Crazy distance runners doing crazy things on treadmills. I would love to know what treadmills they were running on. I'm going to look into this because what kind of treadmill can handle this kind of stuff for starters? All right. That's it for our quick updates, World of Running. We've got a phenomenal interview in just a moment after this quick break.
We have an awesome interview for you from Obsie Birru. She went to an NAIA college just like Zach and I, where she was a 5-time NAIA national champion, 18-time All-American, and recently ran a 2:30 at CIM, claiming second place. She's a 2-time Olympic trials marathon qualifier, and to boot, she has an amazing, all-encompassing view of running and community, which we are so excited to bring to you.
So one of my favorite things that she says, I like to preface this for you so you just look out for this. She says many great things, but the comment about it's important to just, in our minds, to just think about like, what's it for? Like, why am I doing this? And she just kind of goes down a list of examples of that. But the one comment is like, you can win that medal and you get, you achieve the prize. You can be a 2:28 marathoner, but what's it for?
In this episode, we're going to be mentioning an initiative that Obsie is part of, and this is Run, Walk, and Fun for Kids Virtual Hero Edition. And if you want to be part of that, we're going to be linking to that at AtoZrunning.com/episode 36. And Obsie also has it in her Instagram profile, which is at OBBIRRU. It's a great thing to be doing for Child Serve. It's an organization that helps improve health and well-being of nearly 4,600 children.
So let's hear from Obsie Birru.
Hi, Obsie.
Hi, guys.
Hi. Thanks so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
We are so excited to have you on. We have known about Obsie for a long time because we were in the NAIA and she was rocking it out during that time that we were there and also just after. So we have known about your greatness for quite some time. So we're so happy to have you on.
Well, thank you so much. It's very sweet. And it was really nice to see you guys at the trials.
Yes, it was. It was great to connect. I always wish that there's more time, Yeah. Like I would have loved to catch up more with you while we were there, but I'm so glad I got a chance to see you and that you were willing to come on and talk a little bit. We have a short clip that you were on in our previous episode, which was Olympic trials. Hang in there. So we'll link to that in our notes with the blog post. But let's get started. We want to know, Obsie, how did you get started running?
Oh, yeah. So I was kind of born into it. So I'm Ethiopian born, and as you guys know, and then American raised. So I pretty much remember growing up, running is the main sport in Ethiopia. It's like the NFL here. Imagine that. So whenever the runners come back from the Olympics, they do parades and everybody goes out to the streets and cheers them on, welcomes them. And I always thought that was the coolest thing ever. And I was like, oh, it'd be really awesome to be like them someday. And then, in grade school, we just run around and race each other. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not fast enough, So it was just a thought. And it was obviously. And then at 12, when I moved here, it was really more of my PE teacher kind of was like, oh, you should join the cross country team. And then I was like, I know track and field, but cross country, I was like, okay, that's something interesting. And then I realized quickly that it was running. And then I joined the team to just kind of meet kids, and then it became this thing that I just did for fun. I was just making friends. I think it's different when you move into a culture where you don't speak the language, you don't know, you're adjusting. You're adjusting to the language, the food, the people. and being a kid, and running was the one thing that kind of like breached all those things for me. So it was a really great way to get introduced to it. For me, it was just fun. My parents never pushed me. They were like, oh, so you want to go do this thing? Awesome. Well, we'll drive you.
That's the kind of support that's needed, right? Like, even if a parent doesn't understand the sport that you're in, for them to just be like, I'll drive you, I'll bring oranges.
Yeah, so it was really fun, and I fell in love with it. And I was like that middle schooler that would wake up in the morning and go run, and my dad was like, what are you doing at 6 a.m.? I was like, oh, I'm running. Like, it's fun.
That's awesome. Obsie, I'm curious, because it's very rare that a kid would say they just like to just go run. Why did you like running, even then at that age?
So I think it's just running, as you know, creates this kind of purpose within. And I think it's like, for me, it's just a great time to be connecting with nature, be outside. Even as a kid, you don't realize those things, but that was the aspect that I liked. And then also, I think I just wanted to be better. Like, nobody, my family is more, my family is very academic oriented. We have PhDs, masters. I'm like the last one without that master's working on it. But so they're not really like, they're like, it's cool. It's a healthy thing that you're doing. So they never really push me. So I think that really helped too. Just because this was like something that I loved, and I'm doing it because I like it. It's not because I was pushed into it or I had to run certain times. And then I think I was lucky in the sense too that the coaches in the community that I was in are just very wholesome people that like to see kids improve and like to see us more, transition that into a healthy lifestyle and making it a lifelong thing, rather than just like, oh, you're good this year, you're going to be good for me, you're going to run for me. Like, it wasn't like that. And so I think that really helped a lot.
Mm-hmm. So you felt like some freedom in the sport?
Yeah, but I felt the freedom in the sport, and then also the familiarity too. Running is really something you can transition across cultures, and it doesn't matter how fast you are, how slow you are. Like, you run, and it's a language in a way that you connect with people through. So I just love that about it.
Oh, well, I love that.
That's beautiful. That is
great.
Beautiful. It's a language in its own way.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Like, you can be from the US, you can be from anywhere. And then if you're out there running, you just look at each other like, oh, you're a runner. Awesome. Yeah. Let's run,
Yeah. So tell us about how it transitioned to be more serious. So you have this sport that you love, that you have this internal passion. Even in middle school, you're getting up early, and then you go to college. Let's go to that transition. What was that like for you, knowing that you were going to go into a collegiate atmosphere that kind of has an elevated level?
Yeah, so my high school coach and his wife are like second set of parents for me, which is awesome. They were out here last winter visiting, and their son is one of their son, they have two, is my godson. So I think just having that high school atmosphere that felt like family, and then they both ran in college. They met each other on their college team and got married. So cool. That was something to look forward to. No, I'm just kidding. But that was also, I would say, is very inspiring. My coach really cared about each runner on the team, didn't care how fast, how slow you are. I had a hard time in high school because I just never felt good enough for myself. Like, everyone around me was like, the highest I ever finished in the state meet was like 4th, and everyone that was amazing. And then again, that wasn't bad, I guess, looking at now, Shelby and all those girls that I had to compete with. Yeah. It's the state of Iowa. I was very competitive. But so I think just having that seed of like, oh, college running, there's awesome people, you get to make more friends. It was there. And then my parents are like, you're going to do what in college? Like, I'm getting all these like recruitment letters, and like I went to go sit on one of the Division I programs and kind of visit and look around. And it was just, I came from a large high school, actually. I was in a team with 65 girls, which made it so much fun.
Wow. So
the varsity lineup changed every week. So, which is kind of a good check, because you never feel like you're the greatest thing ever. It keeps you humble and it keeps it fun and you work hard. But I just didn't want to be, when it came to the classroom and the academic side, I wanted a smaller classroom. So we looked at smaller schools and we visited some large schools. And then my parents are like, you're going to run? Why? My dad is like, you have this like academic scholarship, why are you going to run? and as you guys know, the only difference between the Division III and the NAIA is like sometimes they offer athletic scholarship, but it's very rare that somebody goes to an NAIA school for an athletic scholarship, because let's be transparent, if you do have the opportunity, the money is better in Division I and you get more. So they were so confused. But anyways, I was like, I just want a good program, a good coach that's going to feel like home. And then also the distance from home, the program that I ended up going into is very close. So I still had my high school coach there. And then and then home was close, but the thing with my high school coach is I really trusted him and his wife, and they're like really important people in my life. And then my college coach got that. So it's almost like they worked hand in hand when it came to me and what I needed, because my high school coach was really great at getting me. I always wanted to push. I always wanted to run more miles. But I think the most important thing is he really knew how to help me increase that slowly without burning me out or without me getting hurt. His biggest thing was like, you don't need to run that much. But when he saw my love for it, he's like, well, I'm going to have to be on board to help her or she's going to kill herself. So it ended up being that way. And then I was just so lucky. The university that I went to, I had people say to me afterwards, after I graduated, wow, like, we thought your coach hated you. You ran like 8 events at conference. And I'm like, I had to beg him to do this. And they're just like wholesome people that just, I'm just so lucky. They cared about me as a person first and then as a runner second, which I think is very rare to find, apparently, because I keep hearing all these like horrifying stories. I've always been coached by men, and I think there needs to be light shed on men who are like awesome coaches and father figures, and I've had so many of them, and there's just few bad apples, and people talk about them all the time, but there's definitely more good, I will say. So my college experience was just, it was awesome. And I think being in the NAIA, you guys know, it's more of a family thing. You really have to be at each event to cheer for everyone. And so it's like almost like high school. And I love that. And I think, Division I is a little bit different, which I think Division I is great and it's awesome in its own way. But I love that about the NAIA, of the team atmosphere, the family, the closeness. I ran with the men's team when I was at the university. Yep. So every run was with them and not with the women. The women, unfortunately, I only saw them in at the beginning of practice, and then social settings, we were all together. And then that's another thing too. I think without the men, I would not have had the successes that I've had, because they were like brothers in the sense that they always encouraged me and came to workouts when they didn't qualify for nationals. They would come and do like workouts with me, so I wasn't by myself.
I have a sense, Obsie, that you really bring people together, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later too. And that's what I really love about you, is that you use running to bring people together. And it's a very, very rare thing, I think, to have that team mindset when it comes to running, because it is such an individual sport. But it's not just team in the sense of like people that are your teammates on an actual squad, but like you diving into working with kids, you talking about your coaches and bringing them together. These relationships that you've built are just so incredibly important. So that's really cool. So let's talk about this story, all right? Because you said you wanted to create your own story when you came into the NAIA, and you absolutely did that by being a 5-time NAIA champion, like overall champion, and 18-time All-American. And Zach and I have vivid memories of this, okay?
So I got to tell this. Yeah, I got to tell this story. So of those 5 individual championship wins, 2 of them were in a single meet. And here's how the story breaks down. This is for our audience's sake, because they got to hear this. Before we were recording, we were talking about this ahead of time. So for those listening, that there's context here. We were talking about this, and I just thought we got to make sure we get this on air. So it was 2011, 9 years ago, and I had just graduated. So I was not at the meet itself, but I was still in constant contact with my coach. He was actually still coaching me.
Is this before Twitter?
I don't know.
Or were you watching the updates on Twitter?
Doesn't matter. Social media wasn't the thing I was paying any attention to anyway. Okay, so there were like a live update thing going on, but I was really just talking to the coach, and he was giving me the live updates more than anything else. But so the 10K, which happens on a Thursday night, is an automatic final. So you start the meet by running the 10K. And not only did you win the race, I think our audience knows I was going to say that. Not only did you win the race, you ran 34:49, which is blazing fast. And you didn't have to run 34:49 to win the race. You obliterated your contest in that one. And it's, that's an impressive win by itself. And so I see that, or I hear that, and I'm thinking, wow, that's, this is a talented athlete right here. And my coach says, well, she's also running the marathon Saturday. Just wait till you see that one. And so then you come back Saturday morning, which is fewer than 2 days. If we do the math, it's like 36 hours
But don't
later.
forget, she did the 4x8.
So there's some 800s in between. It's not like you're not running other things too. But then Saturday morning, coming back in the marathon, and you won that one, and you ran it in 2:46, which is just incredible. Now, you might not, you might know this. I don't remember off the top of my head, but was that an NAIA record as well, the 2:46 marathon?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the record generally was 2:49 before.
Yep. So there you have it.
Yeah. So how
what
about
an
you
incredible
tell us?
run.
You tell us what the process was like for you and what the meet was like for you.
Yeah, so the marathon. Oh my God, this is funny actually. So the marathon, it was like something that my high school coach, he was like, "You're gonna be great at the marathon someday," and I'm like, I don't know what he's talking about. Like, whatever. Like, I mean, I knew the marathon. Obviously, there is a really deep history of the marathon in Ethiopian culture. Like the first African continent medal came from the marathon with Ababe Bikila. So it's like a, huge thing. So, but I was like, I don't think I'm going to be, good at that, or I don't know about this thing. But he always talked about it. And then in college, my teammates, the guys that I run with, the marathon was like the event that they can go to nationals with. So they were like doing it, and we were they're going to be doing this 18-mile run. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. I want to do it too. And then my coach says, oh, well, are you going to try to run the marathon? Because this is before 2012. In the 2012 for the trials, the standard was 2:45. Or 2:45 was 2:46 something or 2:45 something, because I missed it by like 40 seconds. So in that nationals race, it's actually my first marathon. So I go on this long run with them, and the way it started is they did this half marathon in Nebraska to qualify for the NAI marathon. As you guys know, you run a half to qualify. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't want to stay at home and do a long run by myself. I'm going to come with you guys. So we get in the van and we go with coach and we do this half marathon. And I was like, oh, I mean, it's windy, it's cold, it's Nebraska and the back roads, and I get in and I run with some of the guys, and not our guys because they were way ahead. Somebody I met on that road, like I became friends with him on Facebook, and we were friends for a long time still, but end up doing this half, round 1:18, and coach is like, oh, you qualified. You want to run the marathon nationals? And I was like, sure, I don't know. I'll try it. Because I'm like, do we get a team points? And he's like, yeah, we get team points. I'm like, awesome, let's do it. So we just go on with the season like nothing ever happened, because it's right after cross country. I ran the half. We go on, have a track season. The longest race I run, of course, is a 10K. And I go on the longest run I've run before that marathon was 18 miles with the guys. I did one long run, 18 miles. And I'm like, the marathon is just a bonus on nationals. We'll try it. We'll see how it goes. And I tell my coach, I'm going to smile every mile. When you see me, make sure I'm smiling. So he's like, okay. And the only thing that my coach, Jerry Monner and Seth Robertson told me is, if you don't take your water, we will pull you off the course. And I'm terrible at eating before races or drinking during races. So I'm like, okay, well, I got to drink so I don't get pulled off the course. I get in the race and I look around and there are really no women. And I'm just like with all the men and I'm like, what's happening? So I end up like talking to a few of the men and we just like become friends on the run. And they were super sweet. That's what I love about like all the men I've been running with up to even this point. They're just so supportive and never like, oh, there's a girl, you know. So I ran with these guys. I shared my water. They shared their little snack, and I'm smiling along the way every mile. And then I get to mile 25, and that's the only time I'm like, ooh, okay. This is maybe I'm starting to feel a little bit tired now. And then 26, I'm like, okay. This is well, I don't know if I want to smile anymore. and then I have no concept of what's going on. I'm just running. And then I finish, and of course they're like, oh, you win, and all these things. I didn't know where to go because the biker kind of confused me there towards the finish, but it was me and him after, the guys take off at the very end there. End up finishing, and I'm like, oh, I really like that. This is so much fun. I would like to do another one.
Wow.
You must be a natural marathoner to be finished with the marathon and think, oh, I want to do another. I loved that. That was great.
And everybody's just like freaking out about the record, and I'm like, oh, this is actually fun. Now I get to run longer with the guys. That's like my understanding of this whole thing.
Yeah.
And then like, I think my recovery time really is still until this day. I think I just have ability to recover really well. And I think that has just a lot to do with the fact that I just eat all the time. But, but yeah, all I remember about the NAIA and like my college days is just how much fun I had and how many friends I made. I'm like, man, you get to get on a bus. Somebody drives you there. They give you food. And every weekend, I'm like a kid on the playground. I get to do what I like. It's so fun.
That is what a great summary of a phenomenal collegiate experience.
So how about that transition then from college to post-collegiate running?
I miss my team.
Yep.
The only times we see each other now is at weddings, but because some of them are like getting married. Yeah, I think the post-collegiate world, you guys, is very weird one to navigate. Somebody needs to write a book on it.
Good point.
Just kidding, but you know what I mean. Like, so since I was like, an NAIA kid, the NAIA does not get the recognition and the mainstream media or the support that it deserves, to be perfectly honest. There's a lot of people that come out of the NAIA that are great athletes and great people. People think you go to these schools because you're not a good student. I'm sorry, it's a private school. It's actually tougher. So I'm sorry to say that. But like things like people like Paul Chalimo, he came out of the NAIA. Look at him now, silver medalist. So let's, to be perfectly, honest when it comes to that. But yeah, so the post-collegiate world for me was hard to navigate. I'm really thankful to Coach Wilson from the University of Minnesota and my coach as well, because at the time my coach and I, Jerry Monner and Seth Robertson, we didn't know there was how to navigate that system. They never had anybody who wanted to run post-collegiately. So my coach just sent a bunch of emails out, and Coach Wilson was really gracious enough to sit down with us and kind of just help me understand the reality of it, as well as what opportunities are out there. So I was really set on going someplace warm. That was the biggest thing for me. But I would say to anybody who is trying to navigate that waters is try to stick with your coaches if you can. If you have the support, I definitely would encourage you to stay. There is nothing better than having a collegiate coach and facilities available. I know the post-collegiate world seems glamorous, but that's only for 1% maybe who get that contract and who do all those things. And then also, I think it's important for somebody like myself. It was easy because I kind of had a mindset of I love the sport and regardless. It's going to be a huge part of my life and regardless. But I think for a lot of people, when they don't get what they think they're going to get, they think, oh, I got to quit. But really, it's not the reality. the persona and the perception is like there's this glamorous world. If you don't have a contract and if running is not your full-time job, you can't be successful. That's literally kind of how it's interpreted, let's be honest. I had somebody ask me before the trials, somebody I was doing an interview with said, oh, you know, so you have a full-time job now, so you kind of have given up on running, right? I'm like, well, I mean, what do you mean? I'm running my fastest times I've ever run. Not to say I'm world class, but to me, that still means something. Mm-hmm. You know, to me, it's about putting in the work in every day to be able to support yourself and, you know, accomplish other things in life. Because running at the end of the day, you guys know Aaron, and Aaron and I had this conversation. I love him because some of his like thoughts on things, I think he said something once that was like really interesting, and I thought about it. Running at the end of the day really is a very selfish thing. Unless you do something with it, it's my thinking. Because it doesn't matter really if I'm a 2:28 marathoner or a 2:30 marathoner, unless I'm using that gift to do something with. There are a lot of people who run 2:28, but what are you doing with it? Is it inspiring other people? Is it inspiring children? There are people who have medals. I'm like, great, you got a medal. Okay, so I hope your performance inspire people, but what are you going to use it for? Like, I think it's important. I think of it from that perspective. So you kind of just have to navigate it in the sense of what does it mean to you? If all these other glamorous things are not in it, what is running to you? To me, running is a lifestyle. To me, running is joy. To me, running is friendship and it's community. And I think one of the biggest things that in the gift that I'm grateful for is the people that it's brought into my life. My life is so full because of it. I've met so many individuals, so many coaches, and that's like the best part. And then to share that with other people, like, oh man.
That's awesome. Oh, and you're doing that because we talked to you before the Olympic trials, and you said that every mile you had a kid that you were thinking about for each mile. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so in the past, like I've just been so lucky to have worked with different organizations, and then also with school where I worked with special needs children. And one of them was like a clinic, really. So it's like kids with autism, Down syndrome. Some of them are wheelchair bound. So I had a particular kid, and for hip hop purposes, of course, I can't say his name, but one of his favorite things was the wind. Like you would push him in the wheelchair, he would go outside, and he just laughs uncontrollably.
Yes.
And it really made me cry. I was like, wow, I wonder if this kid could run, like how he would feel, because this is like he's running, he's outside, he feels the wind in his face, and this is his joy. And I'm like, wow. So when I think of kids like that who can't run, it's such a huge motivator for me. And kids just really change your perspective. Like one of the things I've learned with working with kids is you could be having the worst day, and they just take you out of your world and put you in theirs, and nothing else matters. Like they think their world is like, you guys know how kids are. They think the world like revolves, of course, around them, which is awesome. And, for however many hours you work with them, you're like, well, my world doesn't matter. Like this is about them, and they've brought me on, and they're happy, and I'm going to be happy. So it's just in that sense, it's really motivating when I run, to me, to think about those kiddos, to think about their families, and to think about, the disadvantage that they have by not experiencing running. So I just really think about them when I run, and it's a huge motivator for me when I feel like quitting or when I feel like giving up on myself. I'm like, come on, if they can get through big thing like this throughout their life, like you can do the next mile. So that definitely is a big motivator.
So what are your next steps What are you looking at next? Because you're such a positive person and you're using running in a great way. So what's next that you can tell us about?
So few things. One is I really want to work on getting connected in this community. So I love being part of the community. Either way, like, I would like to volunteer coach. So that's one thing that I'm super excited about. And I'm sure it's really weird in a new place when some lady's like, hey, I want to come help you coach your kids. They're probably like, are you a weirdo? So I'm hoping to find that here in Phoenix. And then I'm just really enjoying running right now. It's been really weird time in life where the first week of the quarantine, I, like everybody else, reacted weirdly to it, I would say. I was super sad. Not necessarily for myself, but just it made me think of a lot of the things. Like, I'm like, oh, I hope a lot of these kids who can't go to school now have good home life. Mm-hmm. That was the first thing that I thought about. And then I thought about the kids who just all they can get is a school lunch. And I'm like, how are they going to be affected by this? One of my friends likes to say, Obsie, you're all about the kids. And it really is like something that is very important to my heart. So that was a really hard thing to work through and just throughout this time. So I kind of put that on hold here for a little bit about the racing. I know we're all disappointed about racing, but I think I just try to always remind myself there is bigger issues that people are dealing with. And I'm so grateful to have that running as an outlet. And I'm so happy we never were told we couldn't run. Oh gosh, that would have been the end of me.
Yeah.
So I was so grateful for that, you guys. And then I think now one of my things is when I show up to a starting line to just feel confident. I always felt like confident and had fun and have so much joy racing, and I love racing. But I think oftentimes, like I said, the running world has a way of making you feel like if you work 40 hours a week, you don't belong in that elite field, or you're not as good. And people have like said to me, oh, so you're not serious about your running anymore. Are you kidding me? Just because I want my 401k, it doesn't mean I'm not serious about my running. Gosh dang it.
Yes,
so,
we hear you.
So I'm really excited for all of that and just being part of the community again. I'm sure that we've all missed and just being back at that and just having all those setting goals to chip at as far as time and then just as far as training too. So it'd be exciting. It'd be exciting to get involved.
Yes. Well, we're going to keep following you, and we're going to post ways for people to follow you listening to this podcast. And what's your handle on Instagram?
Oh, I think it's Obsie Birru. So it's Obsie Birru.
All right. So you got that, people. It's at OBBIRRU. So follow her, and we will be keeping you updated on all of your running. So this is great. We're so glad we got a chance to talk to you. And I'm also going to link, because this is going to air on Tuesday, and you have a virtual run for kids. So we'll link to that too.
Awesome. Thank you. That's very important. Yes. Yeah, and it's very inclusive too. If you think about running, all you need is running shoes versus other sports where mom and dad maybe can't afford things, or becomes more of a burden on the family. That's another thing I think I just love about running. It's just so it's so simple. I know it's complicated with other mental side of it, but it's very simple, really. And that's what I love about it. And I say make your life a little bit more like long distance running. Simplicity. It's
great.
I like that website. So thanks so much for coming on. And we are so glad that we had a chance to talk with you, and enjoy your day.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
I loved what Obsie said about running being a language, and how no matter where you're from or what language you speak or what side of town you live on, that running is a language that can be spoken without understanding one another is speaking. You can run up next to a person and they know you're runners and you're running together and you go through this together. And I just appreciated how she talked about how running is so inclusive. And I want that challenge to kind of sit with us for us to be inclusive in our running and to find ways to love and reach people through the sport like Obsie has.
Yeah, and the point of like, so what's it for? There's not an answer to that question kind of thing, as much as it's like, if the only thing that I'm doing while I'm running is just a physical activity, that just isn't quite enough. Like, it's not substantial enough for the amount of time and energy and grit and determination you have to put in to really see yourself involved in this thing. And I'm not telling you that because you need to change your thinking. I'm telling you that because it's already true there. We all have reasons why we're doing this thing, and those reasons are never just because I want to go outside and put feet in front of each other. Sometimes that is the reason, but it's always more than that. And so we're really looking at how we cultivate some of these deeper dynamics through something simple like running. And as she talks about that simplicity, and that's huge because it is so simple. And I can appreciate that message because I tend to be the kind of person who overcomplicates things, as Andy's nodding vigorously. I do, but it doesn't have to be the case. And so I can appreciate that community is one aspect of that, that just the joy of it is an aspect of that. Running is a language, and we can speak that language with anyone, anytime, anywhere, and that's an important part of that. And there's so many directions, but all of them are bigger and better than just, I'm just trying to win, or I'm just trying to, conquer someone or something. And those can be good things too, but there's so much there.
Yeah, and kind of a next step, if some of you are looking to do something fun that's going to be supporting what Obsie does, she is doing a virtual Hero Edition race. It's Run, Walk, and Fun for Kids Virtual Hero Edition, and you can register online, and that link is in her bio, but we'll also put that in our notes, AtoZrunning.com/episode 36, and it's all for Kids Surf, so it helps support kids. And this is something that Obsie is doing, and I would love to have some of us participate.
That would be awesome. And I told her I think it's just so great to find more ways to get kids involved in these things. But, the only way kids are going to care about these kinds of things is by seeing other people passionate about them and doing them, because you're not going to watch distance running on ESPN. You're not going to see that. I mean, maybe once in a great while. But, kids aren't seeing running unless they see it from other people. So,
and like Obsie said, it's like another language. You being next to a kid while running speaks to them, and there's a connection there.
It's beautiful. It's wonderful. So many good things to say, and so many ways to continue this line of thought in our own running, and as we seek to continue to grow community through running as well.
Mm-hmm. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you next week.